Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our podcast. My name is Afkamrij, and I will be your host today while talking about this week's subject, documentary film theory, together with our professional film scholar, Silvana. We'll be discussing the film Borat, Cultural Learnings of America for Benefit, Glorious Nation of Kazakhstan from 2006, while drawing upon our main text of the day, which is Michael Renov's Towards the Poetics of Documentaries. But first, thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you so much, Afka. Thank you so much for having me, and especially for the fact that my specialty is in documentaries. So absolutely perfect for today's episode. I'm very happy to be here with you, and I'm very excited to delve into our movie that we have chosen for today, which is Borat.
Yes, it's a very particular film, not your typical documentary, but we will get into that later. Let me first introduce the film for those who have not seen it. In this outrageous mockumentary-style comedy, which we'll also get into later, the Kazakh journalist Borat, played by Sacha Baron Cohen, travels from his homeland to the United States to learn about American customs and culture. What begins as a government-sponsored goodwill trip quickly spirals into a chaotic, offensive, and mostly shocking journey, as Borat exposes the absurdities and contradictions of American life, all while trying to track down and marry Pamela Anderson, who he falls in love with after watching Baywatch. It's a very interesting film when you look at the fact that it has scripted and unscripted encounters and uses very provocative humor and Borat's naive persona to reveal real-life reactions and kind of challenging the viewers to question what's real, what's performance, and what this says about society. It's a very fun film to watch in general, but when analyzing it from a documentary film theorist perspective, it becomes even more interesting. Especially, I think that Renov would find this a very interesting film.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this is very, very important to mention right now because in his text, which is called Toward a Poetic of Documentary, Renov argues for this nuanced and very in-depth understanding of documentary that actually acknowledges its rhetorical, aesthetic, epistemological, and as well as political dimensions. Because we often talk about documentaries as being this like factual, very objective type of educational films, and we just look at that surface level. But in this case, Renov argues that there is much more to that, and that we actually should analyze documentaries as like any other complex constructed artwork, you know?
So it would be like considering how the film is made and how it makes us feel.
Yeah, exactly. And we should be analyzing the aesthetics of the film and emotions. And here Renov actually offers us a lens through which to analyze the documentaries, and he displays here 4 key functions.
Those will apply to the film later.
Yeah, exactly.
And he also talks about a triangle, right?
Yeah, exactly. We have the triangle because he criticizes this traditional view on documentaries and for the fact that they just hang on the truth more than like all the other aspects that filmmaking includes. And he illustrates this by creating this triangle with the concept of the documentary being right in the middle. So the documentaries basically sit between truth, power, and aesthetics, which means that they are shaped by politics, by artistic style, and by what counts as truth in a given culture. And therefore, no documentary is neutral, even if it pretends to be.
Yes, that's for sure. This is where we want to play our clip. Let's us watch. It's in the middle of the film, and it's Borat actually just encountered a few frat bros and has been given a lift. So let's watch it.
All right, let's go.
You get a baby mouse,
Small,
and you put a bit of cheese in the hole of your thumb until it go
That
inside.
is too crazy for me.
I'll do it. I don't give a fuck. I'll do it.
Let me ask you this. Are women your slaves in Russia?
No. Do you have slaves here?
We
No
wish.
slaves. No
we
slaves.
wish.
It is a shame.
And Borat.
Big
Borat.
shame. Big shame.
It would be better country if...
Yes,
Yeah,
there
but
would be
Borat-
better country. We should have slaves.
Our country, the minorities actually have more power.
Anyone that is minority has the upper hand. We have the Jews. We have anybody that's against the mainstream.
Do you want to see my new wife?
Yes.
This is my new wife.
Pamela!
You know her?
Pamela, I know.
So actually, after watching this clip, obviously very interesting, I want to introduce our second scholar, who is Bill Nichols. And in his book, Introduction to Documentary, and especially while looking at chapter 12, how have documentaries responded to identity politics and social issues, it would be really interesting to look at this film from that perspective, because he believes that documentaries can act like social activism. For example, they can operate as a deliberative rhetoric, so like urging viewers how to feel and how to think. When we look at Borat, he actually uses his like naive persona to get the other like American students to talk about issues that, you know, they might not have talked about if it was a regular documentary. It's not actually like arguing directly that it's a problem, but we see the lived experiences and make them feel empathy or complexity and insight for the people. Well, might not for these students, but definitely for other people who actually live in America. The documentary is not neutral. That's exactly what Nichols says as well, like Renov.
Mm-hmm.
It always takes a stand, and this one is very particular. There are multiple strategies for doing this, and humor is the main one used in this documentary. So Nichols would definitely agree with Renov in everything, because it uses scripted characters like Sacha as Borat, but it compares it with unscripted reactions with the real life people like we see over here. So you get stage setups but real world consequences, and Renov would find it so very interesting. Like it exposes power through performance while also interrogating the audience assumptions about true fiction and what they find about these real world critiques.
Yeah, you will see like as this kind of meta documentary.
Yes, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if we apply the 4 key functions to the film that he talked about, Renov talks about, he talks about to persuade and promote, analyze, interrogate, express, and record, reveal, and persevere. The first one, it's very much looking like it's a critique to American culture. Am I right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it definitely promotes this very powerful critique of American culture, actually, and I think he points out specifically like problems like racism, xenophobia, misogyny, media spectacle.
Mm-hmm. And the second one, to analyze or interrogate, he kind of looks. What's really fascinating is that Borat's fictional presence provokes real people to reveal their real beliefs.
Yeah.
It feels like it's performative ethnography, but it actually turns into like revealing and expressing how they actually feel. So it's like it makes the unspoken visible. The third one is to express. The film is very stylized, a lot of jump cuts, chaotic editing, but Borat, or Baron Cohen, also expresses an authorial voice through the character. Like, he is very risky, and that makes it more interesting.
Yeah, he is. He has a very bold type of character.
And the last one is to record, reveal, or preserve. It is fiction, but the film also shows something very real, and that's the conditions of the culture in which is embedded. As you see in this scene, the talk about slaves in America is showing a part of culture that they would rather stay hidden.
The type of culture they're aspiring to have, actually.
Yeah. And by that, it also connects into a different type of documentary called a mockumentary, which is kind of what this is.
Indeed.
It's in the text Docudrama and Mockumentary, defining terms, proposing canons by Stephen Lipkin, Derek Paget and Jane Roscoe, they talk about a different type of documentary genre. A mockumentary kind of uses all documentary techniques or conventions, but it also tricks the audience into believing that everything is real when it's actually not. It's just to persuade an audience of a suspension of belief. Now, I would categorize the Borat film as a deconstruction, mockumentary. Do you agree?
Yeah, so the knowing audience can participate in this playfulness of the form, and there is a contract set up between the producer and the audience, because they are both in the joke, and then the cultural and political critique can be fully appreciated. And the sort of jokes made continuation through the whole film, and it gives us the conventions that shape our understanding of the essential critiques that the American way of living, like the high society dinner party. Yeah, and like we as the viewer are very aware that Sacha is not actually Borat, but playing a scripted character. So there is already a feeling of parody, which could be considered as a sort of clue towards the fakeness of the documentary. However, the rest of the interactions are not scripted, apart from the ones with Pamela and Lucille. And there is this truth in the scenes that are shown, which gets reinforced by the usage of the documentary aesthetics, like the usage of the camera movement and a lot of attention towards the cameraman. And yeah, like all this overall idea, the blending of real and fake, satire and sincerity, leads really well into another very important perspective on Borat that we should talk about, which is this reading by Alexei Lalo called Borat as Tragicomedy of Anti-US-Americanism. And
oh, right. That seems like a very interesting text. I mean, if I remember correctly, Lalo talks about how Borat isn't just a funny movie, but it's actually very bitter underneath all the laughter, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because Lalo argues that Borat is funny because it exposes cultural ignorance and prejudices. But if you think about it, that's also very sad, right? At the same time, he calls it a kind of black humor, where we laugh at things that are actually tragic, like racism and sexism, political hypocrisy even. And he even connects it to all the traditions, like the satire of Lenny Bruce, also Charlie Chaplin, humor that critiques society while also mourning its failures, yeah.
Oh, okay, I see. So it's just not making fun of just Americans, but it is making fun of everyone, including the critics of America.
Yep. Point out that Borat mocks both sides. On one side, it mocks American society, like the ignorance, the racism, the political correctness culture, but it also mocks European anti-Americanism, because you have like the stereotypes that Europeans project onto the US.
Sure.
Yeah. And so Borat isn't simply an attack on America, let's say. It's much more complex than that, and I think it questions like how the US sees itself and how others see it as well.
Oh, right. That's really layered. And I like thinking about that alongside Renov, who says that documentaries are shaped by politics and aesthetics. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, Borat uses laughter as a political tool, but it's also revealing very much deeper anxieties, like both inside and outside the US.
For sure, exactly, yeah. And that ties back into Renov's idea that documentaries analyze and interrogate reality rather than just presenting it. So Borat overall provokes people, whether it's the frat boys drunk in the RV that we saw before, or like the etiquette coach. And it's like using satire as a kind of documentary method to get closer to uncomfortable truth.
Yeah. So to sum up it a little bit, just now that we're ending our podcast, is that Renov gave us a very interesting toolkit to see Borat as a complex, expressive political documentary, and Lalo shows us how film humor is bittersweet, laughing at exposing real social and political tensions both in the US and globally, while also, taking into account how it's a mockumentary, deconstructing how we look at a documentary in general, and how Bill Nichols is also agreeing so much with Renov about how a documentary, even a mockumentary, can be used as a social activism. Yeah, I think with that we can finish our podcast. I mean, thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
It was such an interesting episode. And also you, the listener, thank you so much for listening.
Yes, thank you for
to this
listening
week's
to
podcast. We'll be here next week, with a podcast that dives into the subject of body and affect.
Indeed, so...
Also very exciting. So
stay tuned, everybody.
Stay tuned. Bye-bye. Thank you.